Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Anthony Franco, as I live and breathe. How are you? I haven't seen you in
It feels like a long time.
it's
Almost
been
almost 12 hours.
about 12 hours. Exactly. It was good to see you yesterday. Your conference was terrific. Yeah. I don't really know. Like I was thinking about the difference between dad jokes, about non-dad jokes this morning. I was like, how do you define a dad joke? And I don't think a dad joke really isn't a dad joke until it comes apparent.
I was like, where's he going with this?
Anthony, what if the difference between a customer saying yes or scrolling past your offer comes down to a few milliseconds you can actually control? Small brands often think they need massive budgets to compete with the psychological manipulation tactics of Fortune 500 companies. But the truth is more encouraging. The most powerful neuromarketing principles work even better for nimble businesses that can implement them quickly and authentically. In this episode, Shira Abel reveals the base science behind that. So that was not even the hook. But how about we talk about this? In 1886, a pharmacist named Asa Candler brought a failing headache company formula for $2,300. While the competitors focused on the health benefits, Candler understood something deeper about human psychology. He marketed the drink as refreshing and delicious rather than medicinal, tapping into emotional desires instead of rational needs. The formula became Coca-Cola, Anthony, worth over $240 billion today. Not because of superior ingredients, but because of superior understanding of customer perception. Today, Anthony, on How to Founder, we're going to be reading the right portion of the show notes and we're going to be talking about neuromarketing tactics for small brands. I'm Chris Franks. With me is Anthony Franco. And if she is not left already, Shira Abel. Welcome, Shira. We're glad to have you. We've already thrown dad jokes at you.
Shira.
Dad reads.
Shira.
It's Shira.
You just said it to me before, and I already forgot it by the time.
It's Shira.
Can we do
Shira
some neuro
power?
Shira, see, those of us of a particular age, like that, that's the neuro technique.
Now you will never forget it.
That's exactly right. Shira Abel is the brain behind Hunter and Bard, creator of the perception formula, and UC Berkeley lecturer who spent 25 plus years cracking the code on how customers really make buying decisions. She's helped everyone from scrappy startups to Fortune 500s like Samsung and Siemens transform their marketing presence using science-backed psychology techniques. I'm just going to blanket apologize. I'm going to apologize for the things that have already happened and the things that will.
We are a little punch drunk from yesterday. We are. Chris and I are a little. We have not been super professional this morning.
Oh yeah, it's your professionalism that I respect.
I was going to say this morning.
I did a podcast years ago with Hiten Shah, and I just said his name wrong the entire episode. And like, the guy is a legend, and I admire him so much, and he's so good. And I just wanted to crawl under a rock and die.
Yeah. I would call that maybe the 15th worst thing that we've done on this podcast. No, probably.
Doesn't even make the list.
It wouldn't even make our top 10. That would be. All right. So let's just start off. What is neuromarketing? What is this concept? Why does it matter? And why should I care about this concept as a startup founder? Just enlighten us.
Okay. Neuromarketing refers to the neurochemicals. The neurochemicals are things like dopamine, neuroepinephrine, cortisol, endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin, these things. They're also related to heuristics. And heuristics are things that have to do with behavioral science. So think about behavioral economics, which was basically founded by Kahneman, Tversky,
Tversky, Kahneman, thank you.
Haller, all of these guys. Okay. And what they did was they took psychology. By the way, both Tversky and Kahneman were married to psychologists, famous psychologists in their own right. So they had it at home, right? They were
terrific dinner conversation there.
Exactly.
I'm sure.
Okay, so they understood psychology, and they understood that economics doesn't actually work the way economists say it does, because people don't behave purely logically, right? We're going to think, oh, but I already put so much money into it, so I got to do this thing, rather than we think sunk costs. I'm not going to consider that. I'm going to look at it from where I am right now and then judge. We don't do that generally, unless we've heard of sunk cost and we've been taught this. This is not something in our heads. So they looked at what actually was, as opposed to what the economists say it should be. And they realized, okay, there are these behaviors that we do and things that can trigger us. And it's fairly universal to a point. I have found in a lot of these, so what they're finding is they do an early test. There are some fundamentals, like everything, like marketing, there are fundamentals, sales, there are fundamentals, people, there are fundamentals. And then you're going to find they'll do a test. Then everybody will implement it. This one test will have a really incredible result. Then everybody will implement it, and it won't work anymore. You ever do that in marketing?
Oh my God. It's like, it's
the trope.
Marketing's left.
Yeah. Growth hacks only work once.
Only work once. Exactly.
That's the thing. They're finding that some tests only work once. Some things are fundamentals. And at this point, we're not totally sure when something something comes out the first time, if it's going to be one of those fundamentals or not. Okay.
It's a wildly interesting concept, and it's for those of us that have kind of been around, go to market, sales, and marketing. It makes perfect sense that foundationally what we talk about in sales and marketing is psychology, even though that I didn't know it was called psychology until maybe 6 or 8 years ago. We've been practicing this thing called psychology from the very beginning, because at the very heart of this, we're trying to get somebody to do something. And at the foundationally,
we're building trust.
People that study this look at why we do things. I think foundationally, it's probably a good way for, at least for me, to understand.
So if you look at behavioral economists, they're taking psychology and relating it to money, essentially.
That's exactly right.
So if these are the situations, neuromarketing is taking the neurochemicals or the behavioral science and relating it to marketing. What are the things that we could do? How do we react? And here's the thing. Colors have a psychology. They will have a different psychology in a different place, because they will have a different meaning. The meaning that we have for things in the US is not the meaning that they have for things. Red. Totally different meaning in China than it is in the United States. So you can have neural marketing, you still have to localize it.
So I think it's another good point to bring up just foundationally, which is, as we start to think through what is neuromarketing, if we just start by saying, hey, foundationally, this is all psychology. Psychology is created by billions and billions of factors, of which we understand some of them. And the idea there is that we can kind of come with some principles and ideas, but every human is too complicated for us to fully understand. Is that a fair summation?
Yes. However, we can segment. And when we segment well, And that's where the perception formula comes in. When we segment really well, we can get the gist of how somebody will look at things. So the perception formula, and I think you guys are going to really like this. The perception formula is, perception is, okay, first of all, let's define perception. Perception is how you are perceived, how somebody thinks of you. If somebody thinks of you, right? You may not have any perception. So the core of the
I think you're talking about my marriage. All right, keep going.
I was wondering who's going to get the joke in first. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't mean to say that out loud. Keep going.
So the perception formula starts off with a three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool is heuristics, hormones, and history. And if you're missing any of those legs, there's no perception. All right. If there's no okay, let's go backwards. If there's no history, how are they going to think of you? You don't exist. They've never heard of you. There's nothing there, right? All right. Hormones. If there's no emotion attached to you, you haven't made enough of a memory to exist. Heuristic. If there's no mental shortcut attached to you, you don't exist.
Mental shortcut. Talk about that.
All right. I could give multiple examples, but okay, Anthony, do you have a favorite brand for anything?
Yes.
What is it?
I'll pick one, In-N-Out Burger.
Okay. You know that if you're hungry, you're on the go and you're out and there's an In-N-Out close by, you're not thinking. You're driving to that drive-through and you're getting yourself.
You're sounding like my wife, but keep going. Yes.
You didn't have quite
I'm not sure this is my favorite
distaste
episode anymore, but keep
in your eyes as you said that. Like, you need to be a little bit more lecturing.
All right. So it's basically is it connected to intuition?
Go-to. It's your go-to. It's like, okay. I know I like this. I don't need to think about it. This is what I'm going to do. I know that if a certain friend calls me, I'm going to have a story the second I answer that phone. There's going to be a story on the other line. I know what's going to happen. It's your experience. My experience has taught me this.
I like this as a foundation because we've talked for years in marketing about the idea that emotion. So, but I'm just going to repeat just to make sure I understood. History being that there is some sort of experience that I've had in the past that can help start to create the pattern. The idea of humans being pattern machines, we need some foundation to start that pattern.
History is more along the lines of if they have heard of you or not. If you're a brand and they've never heard of you, there's no pattern started, there's no nothing.
Got it. You at least have to be present in their lives. Okay.
Something.
Second piece then, when you say hormones, that's just the idea that there's some sort of emotion. And there's a famous study out there that says anger is actually a stronger emotion as far as memory recall, like negative emotions are stronger recall emotions.
Negative is way stronger.
You don't really want to do that because the shortcut for the heuristic then would be the shortcut to say, I trust this brand. I want to go eat an In-N-Out burger because it's going to give me all these good things. It's going to be quality. It's going to be fast. It's going to be tasty.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so if we're starting to think of, please go ahead.
There's one more. So what turns it from a three-legged stool into a comfy chair is heritage. Heritage is, where did you grow up? What's your background? How do you think? What tribe do you self-identify with? So let's say, actually, I don't need to say, my husband is an engineer and I'm a marketer, and you're not going to sell us the same thing the same way. A great example. He really wanted a convertible. He's just been, he wants a convertible. Okay, go get yourself an old convertible. Like, here's the budget. Go do it. He goes and gets he does all of his research and he gets a BMW, and I have no idea. Don't ask me which one. It's green. I'm one of those people. So
I
all
mean,
know
I
is
was going to say he's
driving.
probably our age, so this is probably right in the midlife crisis zone. So we appreciate that.
Yeah. So he all I know is that I can't drive it because the second my foot touched that pedal, I am speeding. So back to it. He gets the car. He did all the research. He brings it home. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, the paint on this is a mess. There's marks all over it. We're gonna, this all has to get fixed. Why would you buy this when the paint looks so messy? And he's like, what are you talking about? The engine is perfect.
Right. Internal versus external.
Yeah. So I'm a marketer. I'm looking at it going, oh, it's going to cost this to get fixed. And we're going to have to do this and all of these little details. And he's like, but the engine is perfect. The engine is perfect. He knows exactly, the guy fixed exactly the thing that they mentioned in the YouTube video that needs to be fixed in this one particular car. And so the engine is perfect. We're not looking at the same things. You don't talk to us the same thing. We're not going to make decisions on the same things.
So it's a fascinating point because really the way that we approach and process data and information is going to very wildly based on our experience, the way that we think and approach the world. If you approach the world as an engineer, it might look differently than unemployed founders.
Completely differently. He would never have bought all the furniture in this house.
Right. So it's so foundationally, I say if we say those are the four foundational components, if we start to say it's our job to start to think that deeply. So as founders, it's not just about a marketing message.
Yes.
It's not just about, hey, what do we do? It's about to say, what are those components? Just walk us through how. How do we start to do that? It's complicated stuff.
You get out of the house. You go talk. You go talk to your audience. You do the things that don't scale, especially as an early stage founder. You get out of the house and you go talk to people. How do you do this? What do you do that?
I don't want to. I started this company so I don't have to talk to people.
It's not an option. Not in the beginning.
I love that that's the answer.
You can get there eventually, that's the answer. You're not getting around this. There is no getting around this for an early stage founder, period. I have done mentoring. I was a founding mentor at Google I was a founding mentor at Google Campus. I was a founding mentor at Microsoft Ventures Accelerator. I have taught and mentored and spoken to startups for decades. This is a universal truth. There is no changing it. You're getting out of the door and you're talking to your people. There's no fixing that.
Yeah, it's
why. So why is that so important? Why? So I understand that it's a must, but what are you trying to accomplish when you're talking to folks?
What are you missing? What matters to them? How are you really helping them? Are you really helping them?
Feeling their pain?
Is this a feature, not a product? You don't. Yes, you're feeling their pain, but it's feeling their pain and then figuring out exactly how you fix it in a way that's worth it for them above everything else, right? Having a good product is not enough. The perfect example is, okay, you guys will both remember this, but we'll have to explain it to everybody else listening. Betamax and VHS.
I'm 26 years old, so I have
no idea what you're talking about. So Betamax and VHS were two competitors in the videotape market ages ago, think 80s. Betamax came out first. It came out by Sony.
And it was better technology.
It was better technology, significantly better. My dad was an engineer. He bought the Betamax. However, it didn't solve the real pain. And the real pain was people wanted videos faster. If they wanted to see it in higher, better technology, they'd go to the movie theater. JVC made deals with the studios to get the better movies first. They didn't win on the technology, they won on the business model. What's the real pain?
Yeah, I want to watch a movie in my house, right? Like that's the real pain.
That's the real pain. But I want to watch the movie that just came out and I want to watch it sooner. and I don't want to wait forever for it to come out on Sony. I'm going to go get a VHS because ABC made the deal.
It's a great lesson in history because, in our lifetimes of being in technology, it's happened again and again and again where the best technology does not always win. And Anthony, this is almost, as somebody that's been in sales and marketing, this is pretty heretical to say, but best product doesn't always win, right? The best product oftentimes get left behind because of things like business model, distribution, sales and marketing, et cetera.
And not only all of that, but, oh God, what was I just about to say? Hold on. Not just the best product, not just the best timing. Oh yeah, it's usually not the leader either. It's usually not the one who comes out with it first. It's usually the one who comes out second, third, especially in technology spaces. We had MySpace before Facebook. We had MySpace and a couple of others. We had Lycos and all of these others before Google. We had multitudes before we had the winner.
So I want to just recap because we've already covered just a ton of ground. But foundationally, as we start to think about this concept called neuromarketing, we want to start trying to understand, we want to make people feel things. We want to have history there. They have to know, they have to be aware of us.
Awareness.
They have to have the heuristic, which I want to talk about next, which is that mental shortcut to get us to that
How do
place.
they think of you? What do they attach when they think of you? Like,
and then ideally we want to start to then understand how our customer segments approach the world. To your example, engineers versus marketers are going to care about different things.
Yeah.
So let's go to that next step. I think heuristics and biases, I'm wildly fascinated about it. I've been looking at it now for the past 8 or 10 years, but maybe just give us what is a heuristic or bias and how do we think about that as founders? And this is little murky water because it's things that people can overuse and get wrong here.
Yeah. So, okay, heuristics and biases. I'll give you an example from startup world. What CRM are you taking? Almost everybody in the beginning is going to say HubSpot. But they all know eventually they're likely to switch over to Salesforce. It's just a matter of when. How big are you going to get before you switch over?
Right. It's a terrific example. So explain that mental model right there. So if I said CRM, what happens?
Everybody in the startup world, and this is across the board, unless you are in Eastern Europe, and then it's pipe drive. Or Central Europe, however you define it. I've had that debate. But that part of Europe, then it's pipe drive. It is okay, we need something to manage. We can't use a spreadsheet anymore, right? Google Docs isn't working. That's the other thing. Are you going to do Microsoft or Google Docs? Well, if you're a startup, you're going with Google Docs. But if you're an enterprise, they're going to have Microsoft. So if
even though Microsoft stuff is elite, it's so good. But it's like, no, you're only cool if you use Google Docs. Enterprises use Microsoft.
All right, we need to have a whole episode on Google Docs versus Microsoft because I totally disagree with you, Chris.
Microsoft is great. They've done such a good job.
Microsoft. I will say we just switched back to Google
Docs. So I'll try to paraphrase what you just said, which is humans. We tend to be we compartmentalize things. We like to put things in categories. We try to understand the world by putting things in categories. Mm-hmm. And so with this idea of a heuristic, it's what category do you want to put your product and service into?
Yes.
With the idea there, and Anthony, this is a big one. How many founders do we know that have been like, we're going to create the category? And it's like, great, you better have $1 billion in marketing. Like you better raise a ton of money to create a new category.
And it takes a few years.
Right.
You have to have the time. You have to have the runway. You have to have the budget. And you have to have somebody who's got a personality and a half. It's not impossible to do, but that is a cult of personality play in terms of marketing.
Well, so Anthony, I want to ask you, like you use reusable sticky notes. Those were two different buckets and you just put them together, right? Did you do that consciously or is that just something that you sort of came to as you were building the company?
No, it was not. It was. I fell into it. So, um, it was. How would I try to relate it back to this conversation? But I'm struggling to do that. No, I did not do it consciously. I fell back.
Well,
fell backwards into it.
to me, I'll say what I think about when you started to talk about that, which is the moment you said sticky note, I knew what you're talking about.
Right.
It's a small thing that I write on. That's the bucket that I was able to put that into. I take notes on it. Reusable just means, oh, I'm not throwing it away.
Yeah.
All the other things about it being able to
mental
stick.
Shortcut. A heuristic is just a mental shortcut. What's your mental shortcut? How are you making this so that somebody thinks of you before anybody else?
And I feel like we could probably do like 2 hours on this topic, but for the sake of founders, knowing those things, knowing the fact that emotional connections, we need a heuristic, we need that. Where do we start? Even early stage, before we fully understand what our product or service is going to be, what are the steps that you'd recommend that we go through to get this process of learning going? So getting out of the building, I get, trying to understand what people's pains are, but then what? What do I build on top of those things?
Well, I mean, you're going to have to start building your marketing materials. As you build your marketing materials, early stage, I know everybody wants to start with why, but if nobody knows what the hell you're doing, your why doesn't really matter. They're not getting to it. So you will see early stage messaging is completely different than brand messaging. You're
All right, so
not
talk me through, let's like you're creating your first one pager and we're creating it for How to Founder. And we're trying to say, we want people to listen to our podcast. Just walk us through the mental model that we would use to do that.
Well, How to Founder is it's pretty obvious what the podcast would be about, but
we also use bad grammar. It's not grammatically correct. We just sort of go, hey, you know what we're doing? We're going to How to Founder. That's what we're doing right there.
So the name kind of explains itself. However, let's say it's a name that doesn't explain itself. Let's say it's Vuni.ai.
I was going to say one of my companies was Mobilify, Mobilify, and people kept coming. We were talking about it yesterday. People kept coming to me and goes, "How's Mobilify going?" I'd be like, "No, it's Mobilify." And then after the third or fourth time, I was like, "Oh gosh, that's a me problem. That is not a company problem. That is a me problem. I've learned I have the wrong." So let's say it's a name that doesn't mean anything. Very popular when we were coming up in technology.
All right. Vuni.ai. What is it? It is an AI messaging platform. It helps create your messaging. Asks you a bunch of questions, has all the models already intact, and will give you your first 30-second, 1 minute, 3 minute, your website content, these things. Okay? If it's setting up its website, it'll have a mustache on top. AI marketing messaging. Then it'll have the emotional plea, and then it'll have the what or the why. It'll have the why as the large banner, but you need to have the mustache, is my point. You need to have the explanation of what it actually is somewhere on there. But that's not.
It's funny because I gave a talk on something similar yesterday. And I probably left this point out, which is, hey, we do reusable sticky notes. That's the tagline, right? And then you can say, hey, this is the reason why I did this, and this is the passion and the expertise. I was on Shark Tank, all those cool things that you get to do to create a connection. Okay. Yeah.
So it's just something small at the top, the mustache, right? That's the tiny little bit above the actual heading.
What's the what's the meaning of the mustache? Why? I'm missing the connection.
She's just looking at my terrific mustache and being like, "Wow."
We're talking about levels. Okay, this is, first of all, what a mustache is. You've got a header, right? You've got header 1, header 2. I'm just talking about actual website hierarchy. Okay, in terms of how you're going to be putting, you've got the header and then you've got a subheader.
Right.
You've got that little text above the header. That's the mustache.
Oh, I've never heard it called that.
I heard it called that in Silicon. I don't know if there's another term for it.
I was picturing like a lift pink mustache is what I was. That's what I was picturing. Very funny. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's funny. We never.
I hope I'm not the only one that caught it, that took it that way.
I'm glad you asked the
There
question.
may be another term for it, but this is what I've heard it called, so that's what I'm using.
Got it. Okay, got it.
Is there another term for it?
I was just a tagline, like, tagline.
But it's not a tagline. The tagline would go under, and this is above. Although mustache being above doesn't make any sense. But I don't know.
I know. There you go.
All right, now I get it. So it's the mustache, the emotional plea, right?
Yes, the mustache, the emotional plea, and then how you do it.
Okay, and the mustache is basically helping them make the shortcut. It's the mental shortcut. What's talk about the emotional plea?
Well, the emotional plea is what the benefit is.
Okay.
So that's why do I care? To create that emotional connection.
Yeah. Why do I care?
So I want to ask just one other question on this tact, and then I want to change text, which is, this is easy to get wrong for founders. And sometimes people can overplay their hand in this stuff, which is, I create this, I make this coffee cup, and it's going to make your life so much better. Like, they really try to overplay some of these claims. How would you coach me out of that concept?
If you can't back it up, don't claim it. It's very simple. Only claim what you can back up.
I think it's a good point. And also just understand that coffee cups can keep your coffee hot, and I can make that cognitively.
Yes.
It can improve my life by making. All right. So I want to get into the heuristics and biases, because this is the stuff I know is there's a really long list. I believe that Thinking Fast and Slow is the most important business book ever written, even though it's not a business book. I think it's something that every business leader should read. It's hard. It's a hard book to get through. It's written by, some head academics.
Purposely, I'm reading Misbehaving now. And
that's a terrific book. Yeah, Thayer.
Yeah, and he actually purposely explains that they purposely write books like Thinking Fast and Slow the way they do. They're not meant for people.
It's not meant to be applied. I think you're probably right. Like, all of Thayer's stuff, Predictably Irrational, Nudge, those things, like those are really good books as a starting place for this.
They were meant for public audiences, but Thinking Fast and Slow is not.
Is not, right. Even though it's
meant for other behavioral economists. It's meant for economists.
We also will talk about the, Probable Persuasion and those books as well, like terrific books. But what are some of the key points here? And this is important because I see people that will come in and they'll, read Cialdini and put 5 different psychological points on their homepage, right? And you're kind of getting confused. Is this loss aversion? Is it reciprocity? Like, how do you have me as a founder start to think about deploying some pretty heady stuff?
So you're not necessarily deploying it through your messaging. I give examples in my talks. I'm going to be making it less product driven, but I've made it typically very product driven before. Most of the time you put in a lot of these, it's not just in your messaging, it's in your product. So reciprocity, lovable. Lovable lets you create your first app or whatever with no code, and you just type it all in. And that bit's free until you have a question, and then you have to pay. That's their business model. But they've already earned the reciprocity because you've already been able to start it for free. They've given, now they're going to get. So there's an example of reciprocity. What are you giving? So free trial, limited time, free version, reciprocity. Works to varying degrees. It's generally
scarcity being the famous one, limited time, only a certain amount of, beta offers available.
Dropbox is the perfect example of doing it really well. You have this amount of space for free. Anything more, you have to pay. There's a bunch. My issue with free is that you're not sure if the items you're giving away are things people are willing to pay for. You have to guess, and you don't know. And I don't like that. So the only time I like free is if it's either a limited time or it's something like Dropbox. We sell this thing and it's all the same. So we're going to give you this little bit for free, but we're not giving you the rest of it for free. If you want that much, you have to pay. Otherwise, you're getting into what things are people willing to pay for and not pay for, and your assumptions are very likely wrong, because people are usually willing to pay for very simple things that will make their lives considerably easier, and not the things that are necessarily complex to do.
Yeah, I want a cloud-based storage.
Yes.
Yeah, it's easy. I want to ask one other question, and then we'll get to the speed round. I do feel like we could go on for hours on this.
Yeah, stuff. I've got way more questions than answers at this point.
But that's great, because we're going to all go to your LinkedIn and pepper you with questions. I said yesterday that, and it's kind of struck me lately, that for early stage companies, particularly, trust is the single most important component. And that if you can't establish trust, and so establishing trust is the proxy. And I use the example of what breakfast cereal somebody buys. And somebody said, I use this breakfast cereal. And I said, why? Why did you buy that one versus one that was directly underneath it? Probably was healthier if you were choosing health, because the guy said he was choosing kind of a healthy based cereal. Why did you use that? And brand being the proxy for trust. I just want to ask you, did I get that right? I mean, I get a lot of stuff wrong. So is it true that trust is the number one factor?
I agree with you that trust is the number one factor. It's actually the reason why founder-led sales do really, really well. And then you bring in your first salesperson and it tanks. They don't have, this is a whole other thing. But if you, as a founder-led sales, when you start doing founder-led sales, you need to write down every process. And you need to build that playbook while you're selling. And you need to figure out what messages work and what messages don't. And you need to write it down. Because while you're doing everything off the cuff, you're going to have to hire your first salesperson. And guaranteed, you're going to hire wrong. And that's an expensive, timely mishire. And you're going to hire wrong the first time. You're going to hire the sales guy who looks like a sales guy. And I'm saying this with purpose, okay? Because you're not looking at the real things you should be looking at. And they maybe they come from the industry. Maybe they worked in enterprise. That does not mean they have the connections or the knowledge on how to do startup first sales. It's a different animal. Everybody is buying from you and it's going smooth because you have the trust factor. You're the founder. You have the passion. You have the knowledge. You built this baby. It's yours. They know working with you, they're going to get what they pay for.
It was the second point that I brought up, which is, even though that so many of the best leaders I know really struggle with this concept, is that early stage marketing, small business marketing, has to be about the founder and operator. Yeah. Because it's such a proxy for a relationship.
Nobody knows you.
Yeah.
And people don't follow brands, they follow people.
Exactly. And I think that was, I came up in the growth marketing world where about the perfect ad, the perfect time, the perfect place, the perfect audience, and everything else didn't matter.
Right.
And it might've been true for like a year. But everything after that became about relationship building.
I have a quick question before you jump into speed round, and I'm looking for personal validation. I will admit that this is the reason why I'm asking this question. when creating a brand or when creating a company, I focus really heavily, probably more than I should, on two things. I focus on the name, which I'm now starting to think that's the right, like, if you have the right name, you're bridging the gap to mental shortcut a lot faster.
Yes.
Right?
A good name does help a lot, but it's not the begin all end all. Facebook.
No, it's not. But maybe you can. Yeah. Right. And then I do think a lot. The first thing I do is I try to develop the image of the brand in my head by going through just do a lot of logo iterations. So I focus on the instant connection that people are going to have with by using the name and the logo. Is that dumb?
Okay, for a B2C product, it is absolutely critical. For a B2B
but not B2B.
Product, I mean, let's look at some of the biggest: IBM, HP, NVIDIA.
He just blew his mind. He's gonna just.
I mean, you could have an ugly name, and even a logo that's not particular. It's more in B2B, especially tech. It has so much more to do with the founder. It's all cult of personality. You need to be able to.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Jensen, Jobs.
Every single one.
Right. All of those guys were ends of
Elon Musk.
Right? Elon Musk. They're end of one. They're just such remarkable human beings. It's really hard.
Something. They are definitely they pull in your attention. Travis from Uber.
Travis from Uber. It's a great example.
I agree. The founder story is the most critical piece. I 100% agree.
In B2B, it's what people focus in on because that's where they built everything's built on this person. Management is top down.
Yeah. I have a good friend that has investors in their startup, and they're struggling with so they've begrudgingly have bought off on this idea that it needs to be founder led. Like they're as Chris said yesterday, actually, founders are typically humble and don't want to talk about themselves. And I find that very true. But this person has been convinced, okay, I need to make this founder led. Now they have to convince their investors, like, no, I don't want to make the company about you. The company needs to be the brand. Like, they're finding an uphill battle because everybody around him is saying,
okay,
why are you going to make this about you?
It's not about them.
Right.
It's about them showing their expertise. It's about them talking to the media. It's not about them. It's about them talking about their company. They're the face of it. Until they get to be big enough to stop being the face. Or Udi from Gong. It doesn't have to be the CEO that does it. He was a CMO. But having somebody be out there and be the face and do the talking and get up on the stages, you need somebody to do that. And I think that's where the disconnect lies between the people telling him that he has to be the brand and what the investor is thinking.
Right. I mean,
the investors will be happy with the explanation of, I'm getting on stages, I'm going and talking to the press, I'm getting on important podcasts, and I am building.
It seems like you chuckled when you said important podcasts when you were looking at this. Important. Yeah, and some unimportant podcasts too would be fine. So, if Jensen wants to come on How to Founder, we'll begrudgingly accept Jensen as a guest. Some really good points, and I feel like this is just one of those conversations that we could sit down and talk for hours. But let's transition to the speed round. Are you ready for the speed round? First of all, what did you think about our graphic? You love it?
That was beautiful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Speed round, color psychology versus authentic brand personality. Which drives more conversions?
Authentic brand personality.
Ooh, this is a good one. Scarcity tactics versus abundance messaging. What works better for first-time customers?
It depends on what it is.
Well, I like that one. Emotional triggers versus logical benefits. Which should lead your messaging?
Oh, emotional triggers. The logical benefits end up going down at the bottom of the page because all the C-suite is reading the top and they're not getting down to the bottom. But everybody who actually makes a key decision goes down to the bottom and they're reading all of your technical documents. You need them on there.
A/B testing versus gut instincts. What should small brands, like, where should they lead?
You don't have enough traffic to bother with A/B testing in the very beginning, so you're going with your gut.
I like it. Complex psychology versus very simple principles. What's the right level of sophistication for early stage founders?
There's no difference.
I love it. Anthony, what did you learn on today's episode?
I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to try to do my best.
I mean, you need to process a little bit in a few minutes.
All right. So the things that I wrote down, I don't know if these are, the foundation really is people don't always think logically. I think that's a really interesting way to think about it. The perception formula, heuristics, which is the mental shortcut, hormones, which is your emotion, the history that you have with the brand. The way I looked at it is like, you can't think about a brand unless you have a bucket in your brain to fill that bucket with. And history is you're creating the bucket, and then everything else is the stuff you fill into it. And the other thing I got that I kind of connected is it's a lot easier for people to put things in the bucket than take things out of the bucket.
Yep.
And then heritage, which is your lived experience. I wrote down a couple hows. So you do the things that don't scale first, like, the awkward thing of talking to real people, feeling their pain. Writing initial messaging should be simple. You got to give them a mental shortcut and then make an emotional plea. The most important goal of the mental shortcut I wrote down was trust. And the best way to establish trust is having a strong founder at the forefront. How'd I do?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good.
Okay. Good, Anthony's deep dive. Influence, it's basically anything by Robert Cialdini. I think his stuff is
I love him. That book changed my life.
Yeah, I agree. Influence and persuasion. He also has a book that he did with some other behavioral psychologists. I can't remember what it is. Just look up Cialdini. What you just said, Dan Ariely, Predictably Irrational, all of his stuff is really, really good. Neuromarketing, Understanding the Buy Button by Patrick Renvois. And I haven't heard of that one. Patrick Renvois, etc. Anyway, the Neuroscience of Value-Based Decision-Making by Nature Reviews Neuroscience. And there's a podcast called Choiceology episode, The Power of the Default by Charles Duhigg.
Oh, Charles Duhigg is incredible.
Yeah, really smart.
Yeah.
What about you? Where can we find out more information about you? What other suggestions do you have for us?
Follow me on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. I talk about behavior in business.
I just threw your LinkedIn handle there, where I assume we can find your handles for those.
Yeah.
Have you done any TikTok dance challenges? Because I've done them, but I'm not on TikTok. I just do the dance challenges by myself. No.
You know what? Dancing is actually one of the best things that you could do to put off dementia or Parkinson's. All of those.
See, Anthony, my dad moves. They have purpose.
I'm constantly told not to dance.
Yeah.
Then you need to go dance alone.
I choose not to dance.
Shira, thank you so much for joining us. Fascinating episode. I loved it. We'll all go follow you. Maybe you'll accept my request. We have to mention the show in the connection request. Is that right?
Please.
You don't want to just accept any old random, coming in, trying to connect with me. Yeah, I get it, Awesome stuff, Anthony. I do have more questions and answers, but what do we have coming up?
So next up again, Shira, thank you so much. This was my brain hurts and after this episode, so I don't know if that's good or bad. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. Make sure to follow us at howtofounder.com, where you can follow us and subscribe on YouTube and all the things. And next, Chris, we have Working on Yourself, Personal Growth with guest Eric McHugh. And with that,
Anthony,
we're going to...
Do you want to make any other, like, you're finally firing me for a couple weeks? Finally getting me out of the picture?
Oh, that's right. We have a guest host. Stephanie is coming on. I'm looking forward to next week now that you said that.
Why are you saying that now with such conviction, Anthony? I thought you were going to say you're very sad. You're going to miss me for a couple weeks.
I will have some. Chris is taking a vacation, and I get a vacation for Chris. So look for Stephanie's great. She's going to have fun. Shai, again, thank you everybody. We'll see you on Monday.